The scorching sun beat down on Willow Bennett as she knelt in the dust, her long auburn hair falling around her face like a curtain, hiding her tears from the jeering crowd that had gathered to witness her humiliation. Silver Springs, Colorado, 1876, a town where mercy was as scarce as rainfall in the unforgiving summer heat. "Please," she whispered, her throat dry and her pride shattered. "I just need more time." Victor Blackwood, the wealthiest man in Silver Springs and owner of the mercantile where Willow had accumulated her debt, stood over her with contempt etched into his weathered face. His shadow fell across her kneeling form, providing no relief from the midday sun or the shame burning through her. "Time?" he sneered, loud enough for the onlookers to hear. "I've given you 3 months to repay what you owe. Your father borrowed money for medicine, then died anyway. Now you've added to that debt with food and supplies. The total stands at $85, Miss Bennett. My patience has run out." Willow fought back more tears. After her father's death from consumption 6 months ago, she'd been struggling to maintain their small homestead on the outskirts of town. At 22, with no family and few marketable skills beyond basic farming and sewing, she'd been unable to make enough to pay down the debt her father had accrued in his final days. "Maybe she can work it off," someone called from the crowd, followed by several lewd suggestions that made Willow's stomach turn. Blackwood's thin lips curled into a smile that never reached his eyes. "Perhaps. I do need someone to clean the storeroom and floors after hours." "Let her go, Blackwood." The deep voice cut through the murmurs of the crowd. Willow didn't dare look up, didn't dare hope that someone was actually intervening on her behalf. The crowd parted reluctantly, and dust swirled around polished boots that stopped just inches from where Willow knelt. She could see the worn spurs, hear their gentle jingle as the newcomer shifted his weight. "This doesn't concern you, Travis," Blackwood said, his voice hardening. "The woman owes a debt, and she'll pay it one way or another." "How much?" the man named Travis asked. $85. There was a moment of silence, and Willow finally mustered the courage to look up. The man standing beside her was tall, broad-shouldered, and sun-bronzed. His face was partially shadowed by a wide-brimmed hat, but she could see a strong jaw covered with a few days' worth of stubble. He wore simple clothes, a faded blue shirt, worn denim pants, and a leather vest. Nothing about him screamed wealth, which made his next action all the more shocking. Without hesitation, he reached into his vest pocket and pulled out a leather pouch. He counted out several gold coins and pressed them into Blackwood's hand. $100, Travis said firmly. "That covers her debt with interest. Now leave her be." Blackwood's eyes widened at the sight of the gold, greed briefly overtaking his anger. He quickly pocketed the money, but his wounded pride demanded the final word. "You're a fool, Travis Harding. This slip of a girl isn't worth $100. Travis didn't respond to the taunt. Instead, he extended his hand toward Willow, who stared at it in disbelief. "Madam," he said quietly, "you don't belong on your knees." For a moment, Willow couldn't move. The kindness of this stranger after months of struggle and a morning of humiliation broke something loose inside her. With trembling fingers, she placed her hand in his, feeling calluses against her work-roughened palm. His grip was firm but gentle as he helped her to her feet. Standing, she finally got a clear look at him. Travis Harding had eyes the color of a summer storm gray with hints of blue, and they regarded her not with pity but with a quiet respect that made her straighten her shoulders despite her embarrassment. "Thank you," she managed to say, her voice barely audible. Blackwood snorted derisively. "You're both fools." He turned to the disappointed crowd. "Show's over, folks. Get back to your business." As the onlookers dispersed, Willow became acutely aware that she was still holding the stranger's hand. She quickly let go, smoothing down her simple brown dress and tucking a loose strand of hair behind her ear. I don't know how to repay you, Mr. Harding," she said, finally finding her voice. "But I will. Every cent." Travis shook his head. "No need. Consider it settled." I can't accept charity, Willow insisted, her pride surfacing despite everything. I pay my debts. A hint of a smile touched his lips. Stubborn, aren't you? He glanced around the town square, then back at her. Are you hungry, Mississippi? Bennett. Willow Bennett. And yes, she admitted, realizing she hadn't eaten since the previous evening. But I couldn't possibly, it's just food, Miss Bennett. Not charity. Consider it a proper introduction to a new neighbor. Neighbor? I purchased the old McAllister place last week. About 3 miles east of town. Willow knew the property. It bordered her own small homestead to the north. That's right next to my land. Travis nodded. Then we definitely should get acquainted. He gestured toward the Silver Dollar restaurant across the street. Shall we? Willow hesitated. Dining with a man she just met went against everything proper, but after being forced to kneel in the dirt before half the town, propriety seemed a hollow concern. Besides, there was something trustworthy about Travis Harding's direct gaze. Thank you, Mr. Harding. I'd appreciate that. As they walked across the dusty street, Willow was conscious of the stares following them. Her public humiliation would be the talk of Silver Springs for weeks to come, but at least she'd been spared the worst of it, thanks to this mysterious newcomer. The Silver Dollar was relatively quiet at midday. A few miners sat at the bar, and 2 older women were finishing their meals near the window. The owner, Martha Reynolds, raised her eyebrows at the sight of Willow entering with Travis, but she said nothing as she showed them to a corner table. Once seated, an uncomfortable silence fell between them. Willow stared at her hands, noting the dirt still embedded under her fingernails from her morning in the garden before Blackwood's men had come for her. Why did you do it? She asked finally, meeting Travis's gaze. Pay my debt, I mean. You don't know me. Travis removed his hat and set it on the empty chair beside him, revealing thick brown hair that curled slightly at the ends. I've never been one to stand by while someone suffers unnecessarily, he said simply. Especially at the hands of a man like Blackwood. You know him? I know his type. There was a hardness in Travis's voice that suggested personal experience. Men who use money to control others, to make themselves feel powerful. Martha approached with 2 cups of coffee, sparing Willow from responding immediately. After ordering stew for both of them, Travis turned his attention back to Willow. How did you come to owe Blackwood so much? Willow wrapped her hands around the warm cup, drawing comfort from its heat. My father fell ill last winter. Consumption. We needed medicine, food, supplies to get through the cold months when we couldn't work the land. Blackwood was willing to extend credit, but... She swallowed hard. Papa died anyway. Then I had to borrow more just to survive while trying to get the farm producing again. You've been running the farm alone? Travis couldn't hide his surprise. Is that so hard to believe? A hint of defiance crept into Willow's voice. Women can farm. I didn't mean. Travis's expression softened. I'm impressed is all. Farming's hard work for anyone, let alone someone doing it alone. Martha returned with 2 steaming bowls of stew and a basket of fresh bread. Willow's stomach growled audibly at the smell, and she felt heat rise to her cheeks. Eat, Travis encouraged. We can talk more after. Willow didn't need to be told twice. She ate with as much restraint as her hunger allowed, savoring each bite of the hearty stew and fresh bread. It was the first proper meal she'd had in weeks, having subsisted mainly on beans, the occasional egg, and whatever vegetables were ready in her small garden. When she finally set down her spoon, the bowl empty, she found Travis watching her with an expression she couldn't quite read. Better? He asked. Much. Thank you. She dabbed at her lips with a napkin, suddenly self-conscious. I must seem terribly unladylike. You seem human, Travis replied. And humans need to eat. His matter-of-fact tone put her at ease. You mentioned you bought the McAllister place. Are you planning to farm it? Travis nodded. Cattle, mostly. I've got some experience ranching. Worked on a few spreads in Texas before coming north. Alone? For now. I'll hire help once I get established. He hesitated, then added, the previous owner left the place in rough shape. It'll take time to get it running properly. Willow thought of her own struggling homestead. I understand that all too well. A comfortable silence fell between them as Travis finished his meal. Willow found herself studying him when he wasn't looking. There was a quiet strength about Travis Harding that she found reassuring. Not the bullying force that men like Blackwood wielded, but something steadier, more dependable. Miss Bennett, Travis said finally, setting down his spoon. I have a proposition for you. Willow tensed immediately, her guard rising. She'd heard propositions before, usually from men who thought a woman alone had limited options. Travis must have read her expression because he quickly added, a business arrangement. Nothing improper. What kind of arrangement? She asked cautiously. I need help getting my place in order. The house needs cleaning, repairs, cooking. I'll be focused on the barn and fencing at first. He leaned forward slightly. I'd pay you fair wages for a few hours of work each day. It would give you income to rebuild your own place without taking you away from it completely. Willow blinked in surprise. It was actually a sensible offer, and one that would solve her most pressing problem. Still, she hesitated. I don't need charity work, Mr. Harding. It's not charity if I need the help, he countered. And I do. I can ride and rope with the best of them, but I'm a terrible cook and worse at keeping house. A small smile touched Willow's lips. Are you really that bad? Last time I tried to make biscuits, I nearly burned down the bunkhouse. The trail boss said he'd seen better cooking from a blindfolded mule. A laugh escaped her before she could stop it, and Travis grinned in response. It transformed his face, softening the weathered lines around his eyes. So, do we have an arrangement? He asked. Willow considered it carefully. She needed the money, and the work sounded manageable alongside her own chores. Plus, having a friendly neighbor after months of isolation held its own appeal. 3 hours a day, she said finally. Mornings before it gets too hot. I'll need afternoons for my own place. Fair enough. Travis extended his hand across the table. We have a deal. Willow shook it, noting again the strength in his grip and the gentleness with which he held her hand. When do I start? Tomorrow, if that suits you. It does. They finalized the details as Travis paid for their meal. He would pay her $1 a day, far more than fair for the work described, and she would bring her own horse to travel between their properties. Outside the restaurant, the afternoon sun had slipped behind clouds, bringing a momentary respite from the heat. Travis walked Willow to where her mare was tethered outside the general store. I'll see you tomorrow morning then, he said, helping her mount despite her insistence that she could manage. Mr. Harding, Willow said, gathering the reins. I still intend to repay you. For today. Travis looked up at her, shading his eyes with one hand. Let's just say you're working it off, then. Though at $1 a day, it'll take some time. I'm patient, she replied with determination. So I'm learning. There was that hint of a smile again. Safe ride home, Miss Bennett. As Willow rode out of town, she found herself replaying the extraordinary events of the day. That morning, she had faced humiliation and an uncertain future. Now, she had a chance to rebuild, thanks to a stranger's kindness. She didn't know what to make of Travis Harding yet, but one thing was certain: he had lifted her up when she needed it most. And that, she decided, made him a man worth knowing better. The next morning dawned clear and promising, with a crispness to the air that hinted at the coming fall. Willow rose before the sun, tending to her few animals and gathering eggs from the half-dozen chickens that had survived the previous winter. She set aside 2 for herself and placed the remaining 4 in a small basket to take to Travis's ranch. She dressed with more care than usual, selecting her best everyday dress of faded blue cotton that had once belonged to her mother. Her options were limited. She owned exactly 3 dresses, and one was reserved for Sundays. Still, she found herself pinning her hair more neatly than she might have for farm work, and even dabbing a drop of precious lavender water behind each ear. "Don't be foolish," she chided herself as she caught her reflection in the small mirror above her washstand. "It's just work." Yet she couldn't deny a flutter of something like anticipation as she saddled her mare, Penny, and rode toward the McAllister place or the Harding ranch, as she supposed she should start thinking of it. The property came into view after a 20-minute ride. The main house was a substantial 2-story structure built of solid logs, with a wide porch wrapped around 3 sides. It had been a showpiece when old man McAllister built it 15 years earlier, but time and neglect had dulled its grandeur. The roof sagged in places, shutters hung askew, and the porch steps had rotted through in spots. Beyond the house stood a large barn and several outbuildings, all in similar states of disrepair. In the nearest corral, Willow could see Travis already at work, repairing a section of fence. He was stripped down to his shirt, the sleeves rolled up to reveal muscled forearms, as he hammered new boards into place. He looked up at the sound of her approach, raising a hand in greeting. Willow reined Penny to a stop near the corral and dismounted, suddenly feeling awkward. This was a business arrangement, she reminded herself. Nothing more. "Good morning, Mr. Harding," she called, carrying her basket as she approached. Travis set down his hammer and wiped sweat from his brow with a kerchief. "Morning, Miss Bennett. You're right on time." He nodded toward the basket. "What's that you've brought?" "Eggs," she replied, holding up the basket. "I thought. Well, breakfast is important if you're working hard." A genuine smile spread across his face. "That's mighty thoughtful. Been living on coffee and jerky since I got here." "That explains why you need help," Willow said, returning his smile. "A person can't work properly on jerky alone." Travis chuckled as he ducked between the fence rails to join her. "Can't argue with that. The kitchen's probably a mess, but feel free to use whatever you can find. I stocked some basics from Blackwood's store before our introduction yesterday." The mention of Blackwood and the previous day's events brought a shadow of embarrassment back to Willow's face. Travis must have noticed because his expression softened. "That's behind you now," he said quietly. "You don't need to think on it anymore." Willow nodded, grateful for his understanding. "I should get to work. Where would you like me to start?" "The house is yours to tackle as you see fit," Travis said. "I'll be out here most of the morning. There's a water pump in the kitchen that still works, and I left some cleaning supplies on the table." "I'll see what I can do then." Willow turned toward the house, then hesitated. "Will you come in for breakfast once I've got it ready?" "Wouldn't miss it," Travis assured her. The interior of the house was even more neglected than the outside. Dust covered every surface, cobwebs hung from the corners, and the floorboards creaked ominously in places. The downstairs consisted of a large main room that served as both parlor and dining area, a decent-sized kitchen, and what appeared to be a small study. Upstairs, Willow presumed, would be the bedrooms. She set her basket on the kitchen table, which Travis had indeed cleared of dust and stocked with several cleaning implements: soap, brushes, rags, and a couple of brooms. A sack of flour, some sugar, coffee, and other staples were neatly arranged on a shelf. "Well," she murmured to herself, "best get started." Willow decided to focus on the kitchen first, since cooking would be impossible otherwise. She pumped water into a large pot and set it to heat on the stove, grateful that Travis had already laid in a supply of firewood. While the water heated, she swept the floor, clearing away months of accumulated dust and debris. By the time Travis knocked on the doorframe an hour later, Willow had transformed the kitchen. The counters and table gleamed, the floor was swept and mopped, and the smell of frying eggs and bacon had replaced the musty odor that had pervaded the house. "Something smells amazing," Travis said, removing his hat as he entered. He looked around in astonishment. "Did you work some kind of magic? This doesn't even look like the same room." Willow felt a surge of pride at his obvious appreciation. "Just elbow grease, Mr. Harding," The kitchen wasn't as bad as it looked once I got started. Travis, he corrected, setting his hat on a peg by the door. If we're going to be working together, Mr. Harding seems too formal. Willow hesitated. Using his given name felt like crossing a line, but he was right, formality would become tiresome. Travis, then, she agreed. And you should call me Willow. He nodded, looking pleased. Willow it is. She gestured to the table, where she'd set 2 plates. Sit, please. It's nothing fancy, but it's hot. Travis didn't need to be told twice. He washed his hands at the pump, then took a seat at the table. Willow served them each fried eggs, bacon, and biscuits she'd managed to put together from the supplies on hand. This is incredible, Travis said after his first bite. I haven't had a home-cooked meal like this since. He trailed off, a distant look crossing his face. Since? Willow prompted gently. Travis shook his head slightly. Since before the war. My mother was a fine cook. Willow calculated quickly. The war had ended 11 years ago. If Travis had fought in it, he must be in his 30s, though he didn't look much older than her own 22 years. You fought? She asked, curious despite herself. Union cavalry, he confirmed. Joined up in '63, when I was 18. Saw action at Yellow Tavern and in the Shenandoah Valley campaign. My father wanted to enlist, Willow said, but his lungs were weak even then. He stayed here and helped supply the army instead. They ate in companionable silence for a few moments before Travis spoke again. These are the best eggs I've had in years, he declared. Worth every penny of your wages just for this breakfast. Willow laughed. If eggs and bacon are all it takes to impress you, I'm getting the better end of our bargain. Wait until you taste my cooking before you say that, Travis warned with a grin. You might decide you're underpaid. Their conversation flowed easily as they finished breakfast. Travis told her more about his plans for the ranch, starting with a small herd of cattle, perhaps 20 head, and slowly building up over time. He asked intelligent questions about Willow's farm and seemed genuinely interested in her answers. As they cleared the dishes, their hands brushed briefly, sending an unexpected warmth through Willow's fingers. She withdrew quickly, flustered by her reaction to such a casual touch. I should get back to work, she said, turning away to hide the color she could feel rising in her cheeks. I thought I'd tackle the main room next, then perhaps one of the bedrooms upstairs. If Travis noticed her sudden discomfort, he didn't show it. Sounds good. I've been sleeping on a bedroll in the study, so don't worry about the bedrooms yet if they're too much work. You haven't been using the bedrooms? Willow asked, surprised. Travis shrugged. Too dusty, and I didn't want to disturb anything until I'd had a chance to go through the previous owner's belongings. McAllister died suddenly, and his nephew who inherited the place didn't take much when he sold it to me. I see. Willow nodded. I'll focus on the main room and study then. Make it more livable for you down here first. I appreciate that. Travis picked up his hat. I'll be working on the corral and barn if you need anything. Don't push yourself too hard. After he left, Willow leaned against the kitchen counter, taking a deep breath to steady herself. It had been a long time since she'd spent this much time in a man's company, and never one who was so. She searched for the right word. Considerate? Capable? Handsome? All three, if she was being honest with herself. Shaking her head to clear these distracting thoughts, Willow filled a bucket with fresh water and gathered her cleaning supplies. She had work to do, and wool gathering about her employer wouldn't get it done. The main room proved a bigger challenge than the kitchen. Years of neglect had allowed dust to settle into every crevice of the ornate woodwork that framed the windows and fireplace. Willow worked methodically, moving furniture to sweep beneath it, washing down surfaces, and polishing what could be salvaged. By midday, sweat dampened her dress and tendrils of hair escaped her pins, but the transformation was remarkable. Sunshine now streamed through clean windows, the wooden floor gleamed with polish, and the massive stone fireplace stood ready for cool evening fires. She was just contemplating what to prepare for a midday meal when Travis appeared in the doorway, looking as impressed as he had in the kitchen. "You're a miracle worker," he declared, taking in the clean, orderly room. "Just thorough," Willow replied, though his praise pleased her. "This is a beautiful home, underneath all that dust and neglect." "It is now," Travis agreed. He gestured toward the door. "I need to ride into town for some supplies. Would you like to join me? We could have lunch at the Silver Dollar." Willow's immediate instinct was to decline. She still felt the sting of yesterday's public humiliation and wasn't eager to face the town's gossip. Yet the alternative was to hide away, and Willow Bennett had never been one to hide. "Yes," she decided. "I'd like that. Just let me tidy up first." While Travis readied the horses, Willow splashed water on her face and arms, repinned her hair, and changed into the clean apron she'd brought in her saddlebag. It wasn't much, but it would have to do. Outside, Travis waited with Penny and his own horse, a magnificent bay gelding. He helped Willow mount, his hands strong and sure at her waist. The brief contact sent that same unexpected warmth through her, and she quickly focused on adjusting her skirts to hide her reaction. The ride to Silver Springs took them through rolling grassland dotted with stands of aspen and pine. It was beautiful country, especially with the first hints of fall color beginning to touch the leaves. Willow found herself relaxing as they rode side by side, occasionally pointing out landmarks or sharing observations about the changing season. "Can I ask you something?" Travis said as they crested a small rise that gave them a view of the town in the distance. "Of course. Why do you stay? After your father passed, I mean. Running a farm alone can't be easy, especially with debts hanging over your head." Willow considered the question, which was asked without judgment, merely curiosity. "It's the only home I've ever known," she said finally. "My parents came here when I was just a baby. They built that farm together, cleared the land, planted every tree in the orchard. When Mama died of fever when I was 16, Papa kept going because it was their dream. Now that he's gone." She took a deep breath. "It feels like abandoning them to leave it." Travis nodded slowly. "I understand that. Roots run deep. Do you have family somewhere?" Willow asked, realizing how little she knew about him. A shadow passed over his features. "Not anymore. My parents died while I was away at war. My brother..." He paused. "My brother Thomas died at Gettysburg, before I even enlisted." "I'm sorry," Willow said softly. "It must have been hard, coming home to no one." "It was." Travis's voice was quiet. "That's why I understand wanting to hold on to your parents' place. Sometimes a home is all we have left of the people we've loved." The simple truth of his words touched Willow deeply. This man understood loss in a way few others in her life had. Before she could respond, they reached the outskirts of town, and the moment for intimate conversation passed. Silver Springs was busy with midday activity. Wagons lined the main street, and people moved purposefully between the various businesses. As they rode toward the mercantile, Willow became acutely aware of the stares and whispers that followed them. Yesterday's scene was still fresh in everyone's minds. Travis seemed to sense her discomfort. He rode closer, his presence providing a buffer between Willow and the curious onlookers. "Ignore them," he said quietly. "Small towns run on gossip, but they'll find something new to talk about soon enough." They dismounted in front of Blackwood's mercantile. Willow hesitated at the sight of the familiar storefront. "I can wait out here," she offered. "Mr. Blackwood and I aren't exactly on friendly terms." Travis shook his head. "Blackwood doesn't own the only store in town. Jenkins Hardware has most of what I need, and Mrs. Holloway's dry goods is better for household items anyway." Relief washed over Willow. The thought of facing Victor Blackwood so soon after yesterday's confrontation had filled her with dread. They secured their horses and walked toward Jenkins Hardware first. Travis had a list of items needed for his fence repairs: nails, wire, tools to replace those that had been missing or damaged when he purchased the property. Mr. Jenkins was polite if a bit reserved, clearly having heard about yesterday's events but professional enough not to mention them. At Mrs. Holloway's, Willow felt more at ease. The older woman had always been kind to her, and today was no exception. "Willow Bennett, it's good to see you," Mrs. Holloway said warmly. "And Mr. Harding, welcome. How are you finding Silver Springs?" "It has its charms," Travis replied diplomatically. Mrs. Holloway's eyes twinkled. "And its challenges, I'm sure. How can I help you both today?" While Travis inquired about household goods, dishware, linens, and basic kitchen tools, Willow browsed the fabric section, running her fingers over bolts of calico and muslin she couldn't afford to purchase. She was examining a particularly lovely blue floral print when Mrs. Holloway approached. "That would suit you beautifully," the older woman said. "The blue matches your eyes." Willow smiled sadly. "It's lovely, but not practical for farm work. Every woman needs something pretty, practical or not," Mrs. Holloway insisted. She lowered her voice. "I heard what happened yesterday. That man Blackwood has no compassion. I'm glad Mr. Harding stepped in." Willow tensed. News travels fast. "It does, but not everyone believes the worst, dear." Mrs. Holloway patted her hand. "Some of us remember what it's like to struggle." Before Willow could respond, Travis joined them, his arms full of packages. "Found everything I need," he announced. "Willow, is there anything you'd like to add?" Mrs. Holloway gave Willow a meaningful look, then addressed Travis. "Mr. Harding, I was just telling Miss Bennett how lovely this blue fabric would look on her. Don't you agree?" Travis glanced at the fabric, then at Willow, his eyes taking in her simple brown dress. "It would suit her very well," he agreed. "I couldn't possibly," Willow began. "Add 3 yards to my purchases," Travis told Mrs. Holloway, ignoring Willow's protest. "And whatever else is needed for a dress." "Travis, no," Willow said firmly once Mrs. Holloway had moved away to cut the fabric. "I can't accept that. Consider it a bonus for making my house livable," he replied. "Besides, Mrs. Holloway is right, it matches your eyes." The simple compliment caught Willow off guard. She couldn't remember the last time anyone had paid attention to her appearance, let alone commented on it favorably. "Thank you," she said finally, unable to maintain her objection in the face of his kindness. After completing their purchases and arranging for the larger items to be delivered to the ranch, they made their way to the Silver Dollar for lunch. The restaurant was crowded, and their entrance drew more than a few curious glances. Travis guided Willow to a corner table with a protective hand at the small of her back. They had just settled into their seats when the door opened again, and Victor Blackwood entered. The mercantile owner surveyed the room, his gaze freezing when it landed on Willow and Travis. After a moment's hesitation, he approached their table. "Miss Bennett. Mr. Harding." Blackwood's greeting was stiff. "I see you're enjoying my money." Travis's expression hardened. "Is there something you want, Blackwood?" "Just making conversation," Blackwood replied with false pleasantness. "It's not every day a man pays off a stranger's debt, especially one so substantial. People might wonder about the nature of your arrangement." Willow felt her face flush with anger and embarrassment. The implication was clear, and deliberately made loud enough for nearby tables to hear. Travis stood slowly, his height allowing him to look down at Blackwood. "Miss Bennett is helping me restore my property, as anyone who's bothered to check would know. Now we'd like to enjoy our meal in peace." Blackwood's smile didn't reach his eyes. "Of course. Just looking out for the moral character of our town." He tipped his hat mockingly. "Good day to you both." As he walked away, Willow fought to maintain her composure. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "You shouldn't have to defend yourself because of me." Travis retook his seat, his expression softening as he looked at her. "Blackwood's trying to save face. He doesn't like that someone interfered with his public spectacle yesterday." He reached across the table and briefly touched her hand. "Don't let him upset you." The gentle touch calmed Willow's racing heart. "Thank you?" "Again." "For what it's worth," Travis said. "I think you're handling all this with remarkable grace." Martha arrived with 2 plates of roast beef, potatoes, and green beans, effectively ending the conversation about Blackwood. As they ate, Travis steered the discussion to lighter topics: his plans for the ranch, Willow's advice about local growing conditions, the upcoming harvest festival in town. By the time they finished eating, Willow had almost forgotten the unpleasant encounter. Almost. The ride back to Travis's ranch was quieter than the journey into town. Willow's mind kept returning to Blackwood's insinuations and the curious stares of the townspeople. Her reputation, already precarious as a woman living alone, was now subject to even more speculation. "You're thinking too hard," Travis observed as they neared his property. "Just wondering what I've done to my good name," Willow admitted. "First kneeling in the dirt, now being seen with you. People will talk." "People always talk," Travis replied. "But actions speak louder. You work hard, you pay your debts, you help your neighbors. That's what matters." His confidence in her character was reassuring. "I hope you're right." "I usually am," he said with a hint of teasing. "It's one of my few virtues." Willow couldn't help but smile. "Humility clearly isn't among them." Travis laughed, the sound warm and genuine. "Fair point." They reached the ranch, and Travis helped Willow dismount. Their eyes met as her feet touched the ground, his hands still at her waist. For a breathless moment, either moved. Then Travis stepped back, clearing his throat. "I should unload these supplies. And I should finish what I started inside," Willow agreed quickly. The remainder of the afternoon passed in productive work. Willow completed cleaning the main room and made significant progress in the study, where Travis had indeed been sleeping on a bedroll near the fireplace. She made a mental note to tackle the master bedroom the next day so he would have a proper place to rest. As the sun began to set, Willow prepared a simple supper from the supplies they purchased: salt pork, beans, and fresh bread from the town bakery. The house smelled of soap, polish, and cooking food, homey scents that replaced the musty odor of neglect. Travis came in from his work just as she was setting the table. He'd clearly washed up at the pump outside. His hair was damp, and his face and hands were clean of the day's dirt. He'd changed into a fresh shirt as well, the blue fabric bringing out the gray blue of his eyes. "Something smells wonderful," he said, looking at the table with appreciation. "Just simple food," Willow replied. "But plenty of it." They ate together at the now gleaming table, the oil lamp casting a warm glow over the room. Outside, the first stars appeared in the darkening sky. "I can't remember the last time I ate 2 proper meals in one day," Travis commented as he finished his second helping of beans. "You're spoiling me." "It's part of our arrangement," Willow reminded him, though she was pleased by his enjoyment of her cooking. "About that," Travis said, setting down his fork. "Would you consider staying a bit longer today? There's something I'd like your help with." Willow glanced out the window at the deepening dusk. "It's getting dark. It won't take long, and I can ride home with you afterward." "I don't like the idea of you traveling alone after nightfall." Curiosity won out over caution. "What do you need help with?" Travis stood and offered his hand. "Come see." He led her to the barn, where a lantern was already lit. The interior was cleaner than Willow expected, with fresh hay in several stalls. Travis guided her to the back, where a large object stood covered with a canvas tarp. "I found this when I was clearing out one of the storage rooms," he explained, grasping the edge of the tarp. "I thought you might know what to do with it." He pulled away the covering to reveal an old spinning wheel. It was beautifully crafted from dark wood, its wheel intact though dusty with disuse. "Oh!" Willow exclaimed, moving closer to examine it. "It's lovely. Does it still work?" Travis asked. "I don't know much about these things." Willow ran her hands over the wheel, testing its movement. It turned smoothly after an initial resistance. "It needs oil and a good cleaning, but yes, I think it works perfectly." She looked up at him. Why show me? Travis shrugged, suddenly seeming almost shy. I remembered you mentioned that you used to spin and weave with your mother. I thought maybe you'd want it. The thoughtfulness of the gesture touched Willow deeply. She hadn't spun wool since before her mother died, the tasks of the farm taking precedence over such activities. Yet she'd loved those quiet evenings, learning the rhythms of the wheel under her mother's patient guidance. I would love it, she said softly. But I can't accept such a gift. It's not exactly useful to me, Travis pointed out. It would just sit here gathering more dust. I could buy it from you, Willow suggested. Once I've earned enough. Travis considered this. Or you could teach me about spinning sometime. Call it an even trade. The image of Travis Harding attempting to spin wool made Willow laugh. That I'd like to see. Then it's settled. Travis smiled, pleased with her reaction. I'll clean it up and bring it to your place once it's ready. They covered the spinning wheel again and walked back to the house in companionable silence, the lantern light guiding their way. The night had grown chilly, and Willow wrapped her arms around herself for warmth. Cold? Travis asked, noticing the gesture. A little. The nights are getting cooler. Without hesitation, Travis removed his jacket and draped it over her shoulders. The wool was warm from his body, and it carried his scent leather, soap, and something uniquely him. Better? Yes, thank you. Willow pulled the jacket closer, feeling both warmed and unsettled by the intimate gesture. At the house, they gathered Willow's things and saddled Penny for the ride home. True to his word, Travis insisted on accompanying her, despite her protests that she knew the way well. I've no doubt you can manage, he said as they rode side by side through the starlit landscape. But I'd feel better seeing you home safely. The night was clear and beautiful, with a 3/4 moon providing enough light to see the trail. Crickets chirped in the tall grass, and somewhere in the distance, a coyote called to its pack. Willow felt a strange contentment settle over her, despite the trials of the previous day. When they reached her small farmhouse, Travis dismounted first, then helped Willow down. She reluctantly returned his jacket, immediately missing its warmth and weight around her shoulders. Thank you for today, she said, standing at the foot of her porch steps. For everything. Travis stood close enough that she could see his expression in the moonlight. Thank you for making my house feel like it might become a home. The simple sincerity in his voice made Willow's heart beat faster. For a moment, she thought he might move closer, might even. But he only tipped his hat, his eyes lingering on her face. Same time tomorrow? He asked. Same time, she confirmed. Travis mounted his horse with fluid grace. Good night, Willow. Good night, Travis. She watched until he disappeared into the darkness, then went inside, her thoughts in pleasant disarray. As she prepared for bed, Willow found herself humming a tune her mother used to sing, something she hadn't done in years. One day, she realized with surprise, could change so much. Over the next 2 weeks, a routine developed that brought unexpected joy to Willow's life. Each morning, she rode to Travis's ranch, where she gradually transformed the neglected house into a comfortable home. Room by room, she banished dust and decay, replacing them with order and warmth. Travis, for his part, worked tirelessly on the exterior, repairing fences, rebuilding corrals, and preparing the barn for the cattle he planned to purchase. Sometimes they worked side by side, Travis helping to move heavy furniture or Willow assisting with tasks that required an extra pair of hands. They shared meals, stories, and increasingly, laughter. On the 10th day of their arrangement, Travis surprised Willow by appearing at her farm early in the morning, the promised spinning wheel secured in his wagon. I thought I was coming to you today, she said, wiping flour from her hands as she stepped onto her porch. Thought I'd save you the trip, Travis replied, already unloading the spinning wheel. It gleamed with polish, every part cleaned and oiled to perfection. Besides, I wanted to see your place. Seems only fair since you've been fixing up mine. Willow's small farmhouse was modest compared to Travis's ranch, but she'd maintained it as best she could. The vegetable garden was productive, her few animals healthy, and the interior, while simple, was clean and orderly. "It's not much," she said as she showed him around. "It's impressive, considering you've done it all alone," Travis countered, his genuine admiration evident. "Your parents would be proud." They set up the spinning wheel near the window in Willow's main room, where the light was best. Travis had done a remarkable job restoring it. Every wooden surface gleamed, the wheel turned without a sound, and even the foot pedal worked smoothly. "How did you know what to do?" Willow asked, running her hand along the polished wood. "Asked Mrs. Holloway when I went back to town," Travis admitted. "She knows a thing or two about spinning wheels." The thought of this strong, capable man seeking advice on spinning wheels from the elderly shopkeeper made Willow smile. "You didn't have to go to such trouble." "I wanted to." Travis's eyes met hers, and something in his gaze made Willow's breath catch. "You deserve good things, Willow." Before she could respond to this simple declaration, Travis cleared his throat and looked away. "I should let you get to your chores. Unless you need help with anything here?" Willow hesitated. There were several tasks that would be easier with assistance: a loose board on the barn roof, a stubborn pump that needed repair, but she was reluctant to take advantage of his kindness. Seeing her hesitation, Travis smiled. "Show me what needs doing. I've got the whole day." To Willow's surprise, they spent the entire day working on her farm. Travis fixed the barn roof, repaired the pump, and even helped harvest the last of her summer vegetables. It was the first time since her father's death that Willow hadn't shouldered every responsibility alone, and the relief was enormous. As the sun began to set, they sat on her porch, tired but satisfied with the day's accomplishments. Willow had prepared a simple meal of fresh bread and vegetable stew, which they ate as they watched the sky turn from blue to gold to deep purple. "Thank you for today," Willow said, setting aside her empty bowl. "The farm hasn't had this much attention in months." "It was my pleasure," Travis replied. "Besides, now I know where all those delicious eggs come from." Willow laughed, the sound carrying across the quiet landscape. "Is that all I am to you? A source of fresh eggs? And biscuits?" Travis added with mock seriousness. "Don't forget the biscuits." Their eyes met, and the teasing moment transformed into something deeper. In the fading light, Travis's expression was earnest, almost tender. "You're much more than that, Willow," he said softly. "You must know that by now." Her heart quickened at his words and the gentle way he said her name. "Travis, I—" The moment was interrupted by the distant sound of approaching horses. They both stood, peering into the gathering dusk. 3 riders were approaching from the direction of town, moving at a purposeful pace. "Are you expecting visitors?" Travis asked, his hand moving instinctively to the pistol at his hip. Willow shook her head. "No one comes out this way except the occasional peddler." As the riders drew closer, Willow recognized the lead figure with a sinking feeling. Victor Blackwood, flanked by 2 men she didn't know. They reined to a stop in front of her porch, dust swirling around their horses' hooves. "Miss Bennett," Blackwood called, his tone falsely pleasant. "Mr. Harding. What a cozy scene." "What do you want, Blackwood?" Travis's voice was cold. Blackwood dismounted, adjusting his expensive coat. "Just checking on my investment. After all, I have a financial interest in this property." Willow stepped forward. "What are you talking about?" "Travis paid my debt in full. You have no claim here." "Ah, but I do." Blackwood pulled a folded paper from his pocket. "Your father's original loan was secured against this farm. The document clearly states that in case of default, ownership transfers to me." "That's impossible," Willow protested. "The debt was paid." "The personal debt, yes." Blackwood's smile was predatory. "But your father borrowed against the property itself for the initial sum. That agreement remains in effect. The deadline for full repayment was yesterday." Willow felt as though the ground had dropped out from beneath her feet. "You never mentioned this." "Didn't I?" How careless of me! Blackwood's feigned concern couldn't hide his satisfaction. Nevertheless, the legal document is quite clear. You have 3 days to vacate the premises. Travis moved to stand beside Willow, his presence steadying. Let me see that paper. Blackwood handed it over with obvious reluctance. Travis read it carefully, his expression darkening. This is dated 4 years ago, he noted. And it specifies a lump sum payment due on September 15, 1876. He looked at Willow. Yesterday. A date chosen by your father, Blackwood said smoothly. He was confident the farm would be profitable by then. Sadly, circumstances intervened. Travis handed the paper back. How much is owed? $500 plus interest. Blackwood named a sum that made Willow's heart sink. It was an impossible amount, more than most people in Silver Springs would see in a year. That's robbery, Travis said flatly. Blackwood shrugged. That's business. The property is worth considerably more, especially with the railroad coming through next year. He turned to Willow. I'm not unreasonable. Find the money in 3 days, and you can keep your farm. Otherwise, be gone by sunset on the 3rd day. With that, he remounted his horse and nodded to his companions. Good evening to you both. As they rode away, Willow sank onto the porch step, her legs suddenly unable to support her. He planned this all along, she whispered. He knew I couldn't pay. Travis sat beside her, his face grim. Blackwood wants this land, and he doesn't care how he gets it. He took her hand, his grip warm and reassuring. But we're not going to let him win. How can we stop him? Willow asked, fighting tears of anger and despair. I don't have $500. I don't even have 50. I have savings, Travis said. Not enough for the full amount, but a start. Willow pulled her hand away. No. You've already paid one debt for me. I won't let you take on another. This is different, Travis insisted. This is your home, your parents' legacy. It's not your responsibility. Willow stood, pacing the small porch. I'll figure something out. Travis rose to join her, gently stopping her movement by placing his hands on her shoulders. Willow, look at me. She reluctantly met his gaze, expecting pity but finding only determination. You're not alone in this, he said firmly. Not anymore. Something in his words, and the steadiness of his touch, broke through Willow's resolve to handle everything independently as she had for so long. She leaned forward, resting her forehead against his chest as tears finally escaped. Travis's arms came around her, holding her close as she cried. He didn't offer empty reassurances or tell her not to worry. He simply held her, providing the comfort of human connection that she'd been missing for too long. When her tears subsided, Willow didn't immediately pull away. The solid warmth of Travis's embrace felt too right, too necessary to break. I'm sorry, she murmured against his shirt. Don't be. His voice rumbled under her ear. You've been strong for too long. Willow finally stepped back, wiping at her damp cheeks. What am I going to do? Travis considered for a moment. First, we need to verify if that document is even legal. I'm no lawyer, but something about this feels wrong. He glanced at the darkening sky. It's too late to do anything tonight. Let me think on it, and we'll figure this out tomorrow. Willow nodded, exhaustion suddenly overwhelming her. The emotional toll of Blackwood's visit, combined with the physical labor of the day, left her drained. You should rest, Travis said, noting her fatigue. I'll come back at first light. You don't have to, I want to. He interrupted gently. Please, Willow. Let me help. Too tired to argue further, Willow nodded. All right. Travis hesitated, then brushed a strand of hair from her face with unexpected tenderness. Try not to worry too much tonight. We'll face this together. After he left, Willow moved through her evening routine mechanically, her mind racing despite Travis's advice not to worry. The farm was all she had left of her family. The thought of losing it to Victor Blackwood's greed was unbearable. She fell into a restless sleep, her dreams filled with dust and humiliation and the memory of kneeling in the town square. But in these dreams, no one came to lift her up. Dawn was just breaking when Willow heard a horse approaching. She'd been awake for hours, having given up on sleep sometime in the darkest part of the night. Dressed and ready, she met Travis at the door before he could knock. "You look like you haven't slept," he observed, concern evident in his voice. "Neither do you," she countered, noting the shadows under his eyes. Travis didn't deny it. "I've been thinking. There's something not right about Blackwood's claim. I need to go to the county seat in Granite Springs to check the property records." "That's a full day's ride," Willow said. "Which is why I should leave now." Travis handed her a small pouch that clinked with coins. "This is $60. Not enough to solve the problem, but it might buy us some time if needed." Willow tried to refuse it, but Travis closed her fingers around the pouch. "Just hold it for now. I'll be back tomorrow evening at the latest." "What should I do while you're gone?" "Go to my place as usual," Travis suggested. "Continue working. It'll keep your mind occupied, and it sends a message to Blackwood that you're not intimidated." The practicality of this advice appealed to Willow. "All right. But be careful. Blackwood has friends in high places." "So do I," Travis replied with a hint of his usual confidence. "Don't worry." Despite everything, Willow felt a smile tug at her lips. "You keep telling me not to worry. Has anyone ever told you that's not very helpful advice?" Travis laughed, the sound dispelling some of the morning's tension. "Fair point. Worry if you must, but know that I'm not giving up. And neither should you." After he left, Willow followed his suggestion and rode to Travis's ranch. The familiar routine of cleaning and organizing was indeed calming, giving her hands purpose while her mind worked through possible solutions to her predicament. By midday, she had cleaned the last upstairs bedroom and was considering which project to tackle next when she heard horses in the yard. Looking out the window, she saw Victor Blackwood dismounting, alone this time. Willow's first instinct was to hide, to pretend she wasn't there. But that would solve nothing. Taking a deep breath, she descended the stairs and stepped onto the porch just as Blackwood reached it. "Mr. Blackwood," she greeted him coolly. "What brings you here?" If he was surprised to find her at Travis's ranch, he didn't show it. "Miss Bennett. Still playing housekeeper, I see. Did you need something?" Willow asked, ignoring the jibe. Blackwood removed his hat, running a hand through his thinning hair. "I came to make you an offer, actually. One that might resolve our situation more amicably." Willow's guard rose immediately. "What kind of offer?" "A position," Blackwood said. "In my household. My wife has been unwell and requires a companion. The job would include room, board, and a small salary." "And my farm?" Willow asked, already knowing the answer. "Would still become mine, of course. But you wouldn't be left homeless." Blackwood's smile didn't reach his eyes. "It's a generous offer, considering the circumstances." Willow understood the true nature of the position immediately. Blackwood's wife had been bedridden for years, and rumors about his interest in younger women were common in town. The thought of being under his roof, under his power, made her skin crawl. "No, thank you," she said firmly. "I have other options." Blackwood's false pleasantness vanished. "Do you? Your cowboy friend can't save you this time. $500 is beyond his means, I'd wager." "That remains to be seen," Willow replied, refusing to show weakness. "Don't be a fool, girl." Blackwood stepped closer, his voice hardening. "Harding can help you. He has troubles of his own he hasn't told you about." This gave Willow pause. "What do you mean?" "Ask him about Texas," Blackwood suggested with malicious satisfaction. "Ask him why he really came to Colorado." Before Willow could respond, Blackwood replaced his hat and turned to leave. "My offer stands until tomorrow," After that, I'll expect you to vacate your property as agreed." As he rode away, Willow remained on the porch, unsettled by his parting words. What had he meant about Travis having troubles? It was clearly an attempt to drive a wedge between them, but the specificity of the reference to Texas made her wonder if there was some truth to it. Willow tried to push these thoughts aside as she continued working, but they persisted throughout the afternoon. By the time she rode home at dusk, she was both physically tired and mentally exhausted from turning Blackwood's insinuations over in her mind. The next day passed with excruciating slowness. Willow divided her time between Travis's ranch and her own farm, trying to keep busy while waiting for his return. As evening approached with no sign of him, anxiety began to gnaw at her. What if something had happened? What if Blackwood had somehow interfered? The sun was setting when she finally heard a horse approaching her farm. Relief flooded through her as she recognized Travis's bay gelding, but it was quickly tempered by concern when she saw how tired he looked. Dust covered his clothes, and his face was drawn with fatigue. "Travis!" She hurried to meet him as he dismounted stiffly. "Are you all right?" "Just tired," he assured her, leading his horse to the water trough. "It was a long ride. Did you find anything?" Willow asked, unable to contain her impatience. Travis nodded, his expression brightening despite his exhaustion. "I did. Blackwood's document isn't recorded in the county records. According to the official property rolls, this land belongs solely to the Bennett family, free and clear." "What does that mean?" Willow asked, hope rising within her. "It means Blackwood's paper might be a forgery," Travis explained. "Or at the very least, if your father did sign it, Blackwood never filed it properly. Either way, his claim is questionable." Willow's relief was tempered by caution. "But will that stop him? He has influence in town. That's why I brought this." Travis reached into his saddlebag and pulled out an official-looking document sealed with a ribbon and wax. "A temporary injunction from the county judge. It prevents Blackwood from taking any action regarding this property until a proper hearing can be held next month." "How did you manage that?" Willow asked, amazed. A shadow crossed Travis's face. "I have some connections. People who owe me favors." Blackwood's words from the previous day echoed in Willow's mind. Ask him about Texas. She pushed the thought away, focusing instead on the immediate relief of having more time. "This doesn't solve everything," Travis cautioned, handing her the document. "But it gives us a month to gather evidence and prepare a proper defense." "Us?" Willow questioned softly. Travis met her gaze steadily. "Yes, us. If you'll let me help." The sincerity in his eyes melted the last of Willow's resistance. "Thank you," she said simply. "For everything." Travis swayed slightly, fatigue evident in every line of his body. He'd ridden hard for 2 days with minimal rest, all to help save her farm. "You need food and rest," Willow said decisively. "Come inside." She led him into her small house, sat him at the table, and quickly prepared a meal from the provisions she had on hand. Travis ate hungrily, the food reviving him somewhat, though exhaustion still marked his features. "You should stay here tonight," Willow suggested as she cleared away their plates. "It's too dark for riding back to your place, and you're dead on your feet." Travis looked up in surprise. "That wouldn't be proper." "Proper or not, it's practical," Willow countered. "You can take my father's room. The bed's made up, and it's better than riding home in the dark when you can barely stay awake." After a moment's hesitation, Travis nodded. "If you're sure." "I am." Once he was settled in her father's room, Willow sat by the fire, turning the events of the past few days over in her mind. Travis had gone to extraordinary lengths to help her paying her debt, working on her farm, riding to Granite Springs to find evidence against Blackwood. Why would a man she'd known for barely 2 weeks do so much? And what secrets might he be keeping? Blackwood's insinuations wouldn't leave her mind. Ask him about Texas. While she didn't trust Blackwood, his confidence suggested there was something to the accusation. But what? Morning brought no answers but did deliver a message from town. A young boy from the telegraph office rode up just after breakfast, delivering a telegram addressed to Travis. "Is it bad news?" Willow asked when she saw Travis's expression darken as he read it. "Not exactly," he replied, folding the paper and tucking it into his pocket. "Just something I need to handle in town. Will you be all right here?" "Of course." Willow studied his face, noting the new tension there. "Travis, is there something I should know?" He hesitated, clearly wrestling with some internal debate. "There are things about my past I haven't told you," he admitted finally. "Things I'm not proud of." "Does it have to do with Texas?" Willow asked quietly. Surprise flashed across Travis's face. "How did you— Blackwood came to see me yesterday," she explained. "He suggested I ask you about Texas." Travis's expression hardened. "Of course he did." He sighed, running a hand through his hair. "I'll explain everything, Willow. I promise. But first I need to deal with this telegram." Though curiosity burned within her, Willow nodded. "All right." Travis caught her hand before she could turn away. "Whatever Blackwood implied, know this: I've never lied to you about who I am now or what I feel." The intensity in his eyes made Willow's heart race. "And what do you feel?" For a moment, it seemed Travis might answer. Instead, he squeezed her hand gently. "We'll talk when I return. I give you my word." After he left, Willow tried to distract herself with chores, but her mind kept circling back to their conversation. What secrets was Travis hiding? And what had he meant about what he felt? She was hanging laundry on the line behind her house when she heard horses approaching. Expecting Travis to have returned, she hurried around to the front, only to find Victor Blackwood with 5 men, including the town sheriff. "Miss Bennett," Sheriff Miller called, removing his hat. "I have business with you today." Willow clutched the injunction Travis had brought. "If it's about my property, I have a court order preventing any action until a hearing next month." "Let me see that," the sheriff said, extending his hand. Reluctantly, Willow handed over the document. Sheriff Miller read it carefully, then passed it to Blackwood, who barely glanced at it before handing it back. "This appears to be in order," the sheriff admitted, returning the paper to Willow. "However, that's not why we're here." "Then why?" Willow asked, uneasy at the presence of so many men. "We're looking for Travis Harding," Sheriff Miller explained. "There's a warrant for his arrest from Texas. Armed robbery and murder." Willow felt as though she'd been struck. "That's impossible." "It's quite possible," Blackwood interjected. "In fact, it's certain. Travis Harding is wanted in 3 states. His real name is Travis Hansen. He's been running from the law for years." "I don't believe you," Willow said, but doubt had already taken root. It would explain the telegram, Travis's reluctance to discuss his past, his sudden appearance in Silver Springs. "It's true, Miss Bennett," Sheriff Miller said, more gently than Blackwood. "I received the official paperwork this morning. Mr. Harding or Hansen is a dangerous man." "He's not dangerous," Willow protested. "He's kind and honorable." Blackwood laughed dismissively. "He's a killer who's been using you as cover. Hiding out on a remote ranch, playing the good neighbor. Classic outlaw strategy." Willow's mind raced. Could it be true? Had she misjudged Travis so completely? "If he returns, you need to send word to town immediately," Sheriff Miller instructed. "Don't try to handle him yourself. He's considered armed and dangerous." "And what if I don't?" Willow challenged, her loyalty to Travis warring with the shocking accusations. "Then you could be charged with aiding a fugitive," Blackwood said with satisfaction. "Which would, of course, void that injunction and accelerate the forfeiture of your property." The sheriff frowned at Blackwood's threatening tone. "What Mr. Blackwood means is that the law requires citizens to report known fugitives. It's for your own safety, Miss Bennett." After they left, Willow sat on her porch steps, the injunction clutched in her hand, her thoughts in turmoil. Could Travis really be a wanted man? A killer? It seemed impossible when she remembered his gentleness, his integrity, the way he'd stepped forward to help her when no one else would. Yet there had always been something guarded about him, something in his eyes that spoke of a difficult past. And he'd admitted just that morning that there were things he hadn't told her. As the sun began to set with no sign of Travis, Willow made her decision. She would wait for his return and give him a chance to explain. Whatever his past held, he deserved that much from her. It was well after dark when she heard a soft knock at her door. Opening it cautiously, she found Travis standing on her porch, his expression grave. "You know," he said quietly, seeing the conflict in her eyes. Willow nodded. "The sheriff came looking for you. With Blackwood." Travis sighed heavily. "May I come in? I owe you that explanation now." Willow stepped aside, allowing him to enter. They sat at her small table, a lamp between them casting shadows across their faces. "Is it true?" Willow asked. "Are you wanted for murder?" "Yes and no," Travis replied. "My name is Travis Hansen. I did change it to Harding when I came to Colorado. But I'm not guilty of the crimes they've accused me of." "Then why run? Why hide?" Travis's hands clenched on the table. "Because the man who framed me is powerful enough to make the charges stick, regardless of the truth. He owns judges, lawmen, witnesses." "Who is he?" Willow asked. "Lawrence Blackwood," Travis said grimly. "Victor's older brother." The pieces suddenly fell into place. Blackwood's interest in Travis, his determination to discredit him, the convenient arrival of the warrant just as Travis was helping Willow fight Blackwood's claim on her farm. "Lawrence Blackwood owns half of Dallas," Travis continued. 3 years ago, he tried to force my family off our ranch prime land that he wanted for a railroad spur. When my father refused to sell, things got ugly." Willow listened as Travis recounted a story of escalating pressure, threats, damaged property, intimidation of workers. When none of that worked, Blackwood's men attacked the ranch one night. In the ensuing gunfight, Travis's father was killed. "They claimed I shot first, killed one of Blackwood's men without provocation," Travis said, his voice tight with old pain. "It was a lie, but with Blackwood's influence, I didn't stand a chance at a fair trial. So I ran. And came to Colorado." Willow finished for him. Travis nodded. "I thought I'd gone far enough. I didn't know Victor Blackwood was Lawrence's brother until I'd already bought the McAllister place. By then, it was too late to change my mind without drawing attention." "Why did you help me that day in town?" Willow asked. "You must have known it would put you in Blackwood's sights." A smile touched Travis's lips, sad but genuine. "Because I couldn't stand by and watch what was happening to you. Some things are worth the risk." "And now?" Willow asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "What will you do?" "I can't stay," Travis admitted, the words clearly painful for him. "Victor has sent for his brother. Once Lawrence arrives, there won't be a safe place for me in Colorado." Willow felt as though a cold hand had squeezed her heart. "You're leaving." "I have to." Travis reached across the table, taking her hands in his. "But I don't want to." "Because of the ranch?" Willow asked, needing to hear him say it. "Because of you," Travis said simply. "These past weeks with you have been the first time in 3 years I've felt like myself again. Like I might have a future worth fighting for." Tears welled in Willow's eyes. "Then fight for it. We can prove your innocence." Travis shook his head. "Not against the Blackwoods. They're too powerful, too connected. So you'll just run again? Start over somewhere else with a new name?" The thought of Travis disappearing from her life, always looking over his shoulder, never finding peace, was unbearable. "I don't see another choice," he said, his voice rough with emotion. "But before I go, I'll make sure your farm is secure. I've spoken to a lawyer in Granite Springs who believes he can prove Blackwood's document is fraudulent." "I don't care about the farm," Willow said fiercely, surprising herself with the truth of it. "Not if it means you have to leave." Travis stared at her, hope and disbelief warring in his expression. Willow, you can't mean that. This land is your family's legacy. And what good is legacy without happiness? She tightened her grip on his hands. These past weeks have shown me there's more to life than just surviving on my own. For the first time since my parents died, I felt whole. Travis stood, moving around the table to kneel beside her chair. I can't ask you to give up everything for me. I'm a wanted man. There would be no stability, no certainty. You're not asking, Willow said. I'm offering. For a long moment, Travis simply looked at her, his eyes filled with a mixture of longing and conflict. Then, slowly, he raised one hand to cup her cheek. If circumstances were different, he said softly, I would court you properly. I would bring you flowers and take you to dances. I would ask your father's permission to marry you, and build a life with you that you deserve. Life doesn't always give us what we deserve, Willow replied, leaning into his touch. Sometimes we have to make our own way. Travis's resolve visibly wavered. You would really leave everything behind? For me? For us, Willow corrected. And yes, I would. The last of Travis's restraint broke. He leaned forward, closing the distance between them, and kissed her with a tenderness that made Willow's heart soar. His lips were gentle against hers, a question more than a demand. Willow answered by sliding her arms around his neck, drawing him closer. When they finally parted, both breathless, Travis rested his forehead against hers. I've wanted to do that since the day I helped you up from the dust, he confessed. Why didn't you? Willow asked, her fingers threading through his hair. Because you deserve better than a man with secrets. Travis sighed. You still do. Let me decide what I deserve, Willow said firmly. Travis smiled, the first genuine smile she'd seen from him since he returned. You're the most stubborn woman I've ever met. Good thing, too, Willow replied. You need someone stubborn to keep up with you. Their second kiss was deeper, a promise rather than a question. Willow felt as though something long dormant within her had awakened, filling her with a warmth that had nothing to do with the fire crackling in the hearth. Later, as they sat side by side on the porch, planning their departure, Travis turned to her with renewed seriousness. There's something else you should know, he said. Something I didn't tell you because I didn't want to give you false hope. What is it? Willow asked. I've been corresponding with a former Texas Ranger who believes in my innocence. He's been gathering evidence against Lawrence Blackwood, not just about my case, but other crimes as well. Hope flared within Willow. Could it clear your name? Maybe in time. Travis squeezed her hand. But it's not enough to risk staying now, with Lawrence on his way. Where will we go? Willow asked, the reality of their situation beginning to sink in. North, to Wyoming territory first, Travis replied. I have friends there who can help us get established. Then, depending on what my ranger friend finds, maybe west to California or Oregon. The vastness of their undertaking should have frightened Willow, but instead, she felt a strange exhilaration. The farm had been her anchor for so long, both comfort and burden. The thought of leaving was painful, yes, but also liberating. When do we leave? She asked. Tomorrow night, Travis decided. We'll need time to gather supplies and make arrangements. And there's still the matter of your farm. What about it? I won't let Blackwood have it, Travis said with determination. Even if we can't stay, we can ensure it doesn't fall into his hands. They spent the next hour discussing options, finally settling on a plan to deed the property to the church, with the stipulation that it be used to help families in need. It wouldn't save the farm for Willow's family, but it would prevent Blackwood from profiting from his schemes. As dawn approached, Travis reluctantly prepared to leave. I need to return to my place and pack what I can. We'll need to travel light, but I have some savings hidden that will see us through the first few months. I'll be ready, Willow promised. Tomorrow night. Travis kissed her once more before mounting his horse. Be careful today. Don't give Blackwood any reason to suspect we're planning to leave. After he rode away, Willow leaned against the porch post, watching the eastern sky lighten with the coming day. In 24 hours, she would leave behind everything she'd ever known. The thought should have terrified her, but instead, she felt a curious peace. For the first time in years, she wasn't simply surviving. She was choosing her own path. And though that path led away from her parents' legacy, she believed they would understand. They had always wanted her happiness above all else. The day passed in a blur of careful preparation. Willow packed only what was essential clothing, a few cherished mementos, practical items for the journey. She visited the town lawyer and arranged for the deed transfer to the church, effective immediately. The elderly attorney was surprised but didn't ask too many questions, perhaps sensing the urgency behind her request. As evening approached, Willow took a final walk around the farm that had been her home for all her 22 years. She visited her parents' graves beneath the old oak tree, saying a silent goodbye. Though tears threatened, she didn't allow them to fall. This wasn't an ending, she told herself. It was a beginning. The sound of approaching riders brought her back to the house. Her heart raced, expecting Travis, but instead, she found Victor Blackwood and the sheriff once again at her door. "Miss Bennett," Sheriff Miller greeted her solemnly. "I'm afraid I have disturbing news." "What is it?" Willow asked, a sense of foreboding washing over her. "There was a fire at the Harding, or rather, Hanson Place this afternoon," the sheriff explained. "The house is completely destroyed." Willow's blood ran cold. "And Travis? What about Travis?" Sheriff Miller and Blackwood exchanged a look that made Willow's heart stop. "We found a body in the ruins," the sheriff said gently. "It appears Mr. Hanson was inside when the fire started." "No," Willow whispered, shaking her head in denial. "That's not possible. He wouldn't." She couldn't finish the thought. "I'm sorry, Miss Bennett," Sheriff Miller said, genuine compassion in his voice. "The evidence suggests he may have taken his own life rather than face justice. We found his horse in the barn, saddled and ready to ride. It's not uncommon for criminals to choose this way out," Blackwood added, his false sympathy barely concealing his satisfaction. "Especially when they've dragged innocent young women into their schemes." Willow barely heard him, her mind reeling with shock and disbelief. It couldn't be true. Travis had promised to come for her. They were going to leave together. He wouldn't have. "If it's any consolation," Sheriff Miller continued, "this resolves the matter of his charges. The law considers his debt paid." "How convenient for everyone," Willow said bitterly, finally finding her voice. "If you'll excuse me, gentlemen, I'd like to be alone." After they left, Willow collapsed onto a chair, numb with grief and confusion. Nothing made sense. Travis had been so determined, so full of plans for their future. He wouldn't have given up, wouldn't have left her alone. Unless he changed his mind about taking her with him. Perhaps he decided she would be better off without him after all. No. Willow rejected the thought immediately. She knew Travis knew his heart, his integrity. Whatever had happened at his ranch, it wasn't what Blackwood and the sheriff believed. As night fell, Willow remained by the window, watching the road, hoping against hope that Travis would appear. Midnight came and went with no sign of him. Eventually, exhaustion overcame her, and she fell into a troubled sleep in her chair. A soft tapping at the window woke her. Disoriented, Willow looked up to see a shadowy figure outside. Her heart leapt to her throat as she rushed to the door, flinging it open to find Travis standing there, very much alive. "Travis!" She threw herself into his arms, holding him so tightly she could feel his heart beating against her chest. "They said you were dead. There was a fire. They found a body." "Shh!" Travis soothed, stroking her hair. "I'm all right. It was a ruse. Blackwood's men set the fire, but I was already gone. The body they found was likely a drifter who'd been staying in my barn. I tried to warn him, but I was too late." Willow pulled back enough to see his face in the moonlight. Soot streaked his skin, and a fresh cut marked his cheek. "What happened?" Blackwood's men came for me this afternoon," Travis explained quickly. "I managed to escape out the back just before they torched the place. I've been hiding in the woods, waiting until it was safe to come to you." Relief flooded through Willow, followed quickly by urgency. "We need to leave now. They think you're dead. It's the perfect chance to get away cleanly." Travis nodded. "That's why I'm here. Are you ready?" "Yes." Willow gestured to the small bag she'd packed earlier. "Everything important is in there." "Then let's go," Travis said. "I have horses waiting in the trees." Willow took one last look around the small house where she'd been born, where her parents had lived and died, where she'd experienced both profound joy and devastating loss. It was just a place, she reminded herself. Home would now be wherever she and Travis were together. She picked up her bag, blew out the lamp, and closed the door behind her without looking back. They rode through the night, keeping to back trails and avoiding the main roads. Travis had indeed prepared well. He had supplies, money, and a clear plan for their journey north. By dawn, they were miles from Silver Springs, the mountains rising before them like a promise of freedom. As they paused to rest the horses near a small stream, Travis took Willow's hand, his expression serious in the early morning light. "It's not too late to change your mind," he said. "We could find a way for you to return safely, claim you knew nothing of my plans." Willow shook her head firmly. "My mind is made up. I'm where I want to be." Travis smiled, relief evident in his eyes. "Then there's something I need to ask you." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a simple gold band. "I salvaged this from my mother's jewelry box before the fire. It's not much, but it's perfect," Willow whispered, her heart swelling with emotion. "Willow Bennett," Travis said, taking her hand. "I know this isn't how either of us imagined our lives would go. I can't promise you stability or certainty. But I can promise to love you, protect you, and stand by you for as long as I live." "Will you marry me?" "Yes," Willow answered without hesitation. 1,000 times yes. Travis slipped the ring onto her finger, then pulled her into his arms for a kiss that sealed their commitment to each other, and the uncertain future that lay ahead. They were married 3 days later by a preacher in a small mining town where no one knew them. It wasn't the wedding Willow might have dreamed of as a young girl, but as she spoke her vows to Travis under the simple wooden cross of a frontier church, she knew it was exactly right. Their journey continued north, each day taking them farther from their past and closer to a new beginning. They faced hardships, bad weather, difficult terrain, the constant vigilance required to avoid recognition, but they faced them together, finding strength in their growing bond. 2 months later, they reached their destination, a small settlement in Wyoming territory where Travis's friend from the war had established a successful ranch. James Cooper welcomed them with open arms, offering Travis work and a small cabin on his property while they decided on their next steps. It was there, as winter settled over the mountains, that Willow received a letter forwarded through a complex chain of trusted contacts. It was from Travis's ranger friend, and it contained news that would change everything. Lawrence Blackwood had been arrested for fraud, bribery, and conspiracy to commit murder. Evidence had surfaced linking him to numerous crimes, including the attack on the Hanson Ranch that had resulted in the death of Travis's father. Most importantly, a witness had come forward to testify that Travis had acted in self-defense, clearing his name of the murder charge. "We can go back," Willow said wonderingly as they sat before the fire in their small cabin. "You're a free man." Travis was quiet for a long moment, considering. "Do you want to go back?" Willow thought about Silver Springs, about her farm now owned by the church, about the life they had left behind. "No," she realized. "That chapter is closed. This is our home now, the life we're building together." Travis smiled, pulling her close against his side. "I was hoping you'd say that. Spring brought new beginnings." Travis and Willow purchased land adjacent to the Cooper Ranch, using the money Travis had saved and compensation that came with his official exoneration. They built a modest house with their own hands and began raising cattle on the fertile grassland. By summer, they had news of their own to celebrate. Willow was expecting their first child. A son or daughter who will never know what it's like to kneel in the dust, Travis said one evening as they sat on the porch of their new home, his hand resting protectively over Willow's growing belly. Because their father knows the importance of lifting people up, Willow replied, leaning into his embrace. Looking out over the land that was now truly theirs, earned through hard work rather than inheritance, Willow felt a contentment she hadn't known was possible. The path that had brought them here had been unexpected and often difficult, but she wouldn't change a moment of it. From the dust of humiliation to the heights of love, she and Travis had found their way together. And that, Willow knew with absolute certainty, was worth everything they had left behind. Their daughter was born the following winter, a strong, healthy girl with her father's storm-gray eyes and her mother's auburn hair. They named her Hope, a testament to what had sustained them through their darkest times, and what would guide their family into the future. As the years passed, their ranch prospered, and their family grew. A son joined their daughter 2 years later, followed by twin girls who brought equal measures of joy and chaos to their lives. Travis became known throughout the territory for his fair dealings and expert knowledge of cattle. Willow established a small wool business, finally putting the spinning wheel from Travis's ranch to good use. Occasionally, news would reach them from Silver Springs. Victor Blackwood had lost much of his influence after his brother's downfall, and eventually sold his businesses and moved east. The church had turned Willow's family farm into a home for orphaned children, fulfilling the purpose she had intended for it. On the 10th anniversary of the day Travis had lifted Willow from the dust of Silver Springs Town Square, they hosted a celebration at their ranch. Friends and neighbors gathered to share food, music, and stories, unaware of the significance of the date to their hosts. As twilight fell and their guests began to depart, Travis found Willow standing alone on a rise overlooking their property, the house glowing with lantern light, their children playing in the yard, cattle grazing peacefully in the distance. "Any regrets?" he asked, wrapping his arms around her from behind. Willow leaned back against his chest, covering his hands with her own. "Not one," she replied truthfully. "You." "Only that I didn't find you sooner," Travis said, pressing a kiss to her temple. "Think of all the time we could have had. We have the rest of our lives," Willow reminded him, turning in his arms to face him. "And I intend to make the most of every moment." Travis smiled, the lines around his eyes deepening, lines earned through years of laughter and outdoor work, so different from the wary gaze of the man who had first come to her aid. "I love you, Willow Hanson," he said, using the name that had once been his secret burden, and was now their shared pride. "And I love you," she replied, rising on tiptoe to kiss him as the first stars appeared in the darkening sky. "My Cowboy who paid the price and lifted me up." Together they walked back to the house that love had built, where their children waited, where their future unfolded one precious day at a time, no longer kneeling in the dust, but standing tall in the life they had created from an act of courage and kindness on a dusty street so many years before.